For years, we've all been told the same thing about the IELTS exam. If you want a high score, you've got to learn complex, high-level vocabulary. But what if that's just wrong? Today, we're going to dig into some hard data that uncovers the real vocabulary method that top-scoring students are using. And trust me, it is not what you think. I want to start with a number, just one number that might kind of blow your mind, 33.5%. Just let that sink in for a second. What on earth could that mean when it comes to a high-stakes English exam?
Well, get this. That's the percentage of words in real Band 7, 8, and 9 essays that are just simple, everyday words. Words like the, to, and of. That's right. Based on an analysis of 100 actual successful essays, more than a third of the words used were the most basic ones in the entire English language.
And that data, it forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. Is all that time you're spending memorizing these long lists of so-called complex words not just a waste of time, but could it actually be hurting your score?
You know what? Let's just call this what it is. It's a myth. The whole idea that you need this giant arsenal of fancy, obscure words to do well is a myth that the data is about to completely tear apart. So let's break it down.
So really, you've got two different approaches here. On one side, you have the common advice you see everywhere online. Use high-level words, always improve your range, learn those big vocabulary lists. But on the other side, you've got this data-backed method which says, keep it simple, focus on being accurate, and just get really good with the words you already know. Let's see which one the evidence actually points to.
We're going to start by looking at the most frequently used words across all 100 of those high-scoring essays, and I think the results are going to surprise you.
I mean, just look at this list of the most common words. The, to, of, in, that. They're not fancy at all, are they? They're just the foundational building blocks of English. In fact, the top 20 most common words, all simple ones just like these, make up over a third of the total words in these elite-level essays. This isn't about being complex. It's about being clear. And this brings up a huge point that so many students stress about: repetition. You know, if you ever had a teacher tell you, never repeat a word, well, they were wrong. It is literally impossible to write a good, coherent essay without using these essential words again and again and again. Okay, so that covers the basic nuts and bolts of the essay. Let's move up to the next level and see what's happening with the topic-specific keywords and the linking words, the stuff that really structures your argument. Looking at the top 10 most common keywords, you'll see the exact same pattern. Look how simple and familiar they are. People, children, school, health. These are not some obscure academic terms. They're words that I'm willing to bet you already know and use every day. And it's no surprise that the most common topics for these essays are things like education and health. And that's exactly why these simple, topic-specific words are your most powerful tool. Honestly, learning a word like plethora isn't really going to help you discuss public health, but knowing how to use the word diet correctly, that absolutely will. The story just continues when we get to linking words. The most common ones are exactly what you'd guess. For example, in conclusion, however, simple, and they get the job done. You have to remember, examiners don't give you extra points for a fancy transition word. They give you points for using the right one correctly. But wait, here's the real bombshell. The data actually showed that Band 9 students often use fewer linking words than Band 7 students. Let that sink in. So the takeaway here is huge. It's not about how many you can stuff into your essay, it's about how accurately you use them. It's quality over quantity every single time.
So all of this leads to a really simple, but I think really powerful analogy to help you picture the right way to think about vocabulary. Let's call it the cake and sprinkles model.
Now, how do we know this for sure? Well, a software analysis actually broke down every single word by its official difficulty level. You've got A1 and A2, which are basic, B1 and B2, which are intermediate, and then C1 and C2, which are advanced. And just look at the results. The vast majority, we're talking nearly 90% of the words in these top essays, are simple or intermediate. This is the main ingredient of our cake.
And here's the analogy. Think of your essay like a cake. The cake itself, the flour, the sugar, the milk that makes up 90% of it, those are your simple, everyday A1 to B2 words. The sprinkles, that's the tiny 10% of higher-level C1 and C2 words. You just use them sparingly for a little bit of decoration and specific impact. I mean, you can't make a cake out of just sprinkles, right?
So this gives us a really clear two-step strategy. Step 1, build your cake. Get really, really good at using the simple, accurate words you already know to get your ideas across clearly. Then, step 2, and only when you need to,
add a few sprinkles, a precise, topic-specific, higher-level word that just fits perfectly. So what do these high-level sprinkles actually look like? Well, here are some real examples from the essays. We're talking words like accountable, adolescent, and advocate. And notice, these aren't impossibly difficult or obscure words. They're functional, they're practical, and they relate directly to common essay topics.
And this should really make you stop and think for a second. Are these so-called complex words really as scary as you've been led to believe? Because for a lot of you, words just like this are probably already within your reach.
Okay, so let's put this all together. Let's summarize exactly what this new data-backed strategy should look like for you.
This table pretty much says it all. When you put the priorities head-to-head, the data-backed method wins every single time. Simplicity beats complexity. Accuracy crushes range. And mastering the vocabulary you already have is way more effective than just memorizing endless word lists.
So here it is. This is the single most important thing to take away from all of this. The secret to a high score isn't about hunting for new exotic words. It's about becoming a master of the simple, topic-specific words you already know and using them with absolute precision.
But look, of course there's a balance here. You can't just write the word people 20 times in your essay and expect a band 9. You do need some variety. And that leaves us with one final, really critical question. If you're not supposed to be learning long lists of complex words, then which simple synonyms are the right ones to focus on? You know, the ones that are safe, accurate, and actually used by top-scoring students? Well, that's the next piece of the puzzle.